Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Chris, your NFL writer here at OccupyFantasy.com, here with a look at the running back position for the Week 12 action in NFL DFS over on FanDuel, DraftKings, and Yahoo. We're dropping these position preview videos throughout the rest of the entire regular season and postseason. You already know that by now if you've been watching our videos, and we certainly appreciate that. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel below, like the video, and leave a comment in the comment section below about running backs. We'd be happy to talk to you about them down in there. Really think the same three guys that we talked about last week are going to be the favorite running backs here on Sunday once again. And I think that means we're going to be looking at a couple of value backs to start off. It does look like we're going to have an opportunity to play A.J. Dillon as the starting running back for the Packers again once more here in Week 12 against the Los Angeles Rams. Above average blocking for this offensive line for the Green Bay Packers. They're ninth best in the league according to Football Outsiders, so that's certainly one thing to keep in mind. 75% of offensive snaps is how many that A.J. Dillon played last week against the Vikings. Patrick Taylor played just 25% of snaps, so a pretty clear indication that didn't use these guys on the field together. If they did do it, they didn't do it that much, to be honest with you, because that obviously added up to a perfect 100%. 11 carries, 6 targets for him in that game versus just 4 carries in total for Patrick Taylor. So all of the running back opportunity, provided that a now questionable Aaron Jones is still out, is probably going to go right back to A.J. Dillon. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that through Sunday. Provided Aaron Jones is unable to play, we're going to go right back to A.J. Dillon here at $5,900 on DraftKings. $6,900 over on FanDuel, whose price actually did come down a little bit for this matchup against the Rams. So that's another interesting component here, probably pushing people to A.J. Dillon in what's a relatively high total game in the late window. Myles Gaskin with the Miami Dolphins. His price also came down after last week somehow. $5,600 here on DraftKings, $6,200 over on FanDuel. This is just the 20th rush defense, according to Football Outsiders once again. So a below average matchup once again here for Myles Gaskin. Not as good as last week against the Jets, but still a very good one. The Panthers actually pretty good defending passing routes from running backs, so don't expect much production from Gaskin there, although the volume will be there, and that is certainly the number one thing that we look for in fantasy football. Something to keep in mind with Gaskin. A little bit of musical chairs behind him at the running back position with the Dolphins. Ahmed there has kind of lost his job. It looks like the Duke Johnson, who was just signed recently, but the touches haven't really been there for either one of them. 71% of team rushes, 11% of team targets over the last 3 weeks for the Dolphins belong to Myles Gaskin. So very affordable running back here at home against the Panthers. Probably going to see him in a lot of lineups as a result. Very big red zone role for the Dolphins, so also has very high touchdown expectation when he's on the field, which is frequently. Other side of this game, everybody's favorite running back to talk about, well, used to be everybody's favorite running back to talk about. Get to that in a second. Christian McCaffrey with the Carolina Panthers, leading this team in targets over the last 3 weeks since he rejoined the starting lineup. Really, the only threat to McCaffrey's volume is Cam Newton, who we talked about in our quarterback video, another player that we like this week. He and Newton both had 10 carries last week. McCaffrey with a team high 8 targets on Newton's 27 pass attempts last week against the football team. Would expect more of the same here in the game against the Miami Dolphins. McCaffrey finally back to a full workload, played 90% of the snaps for the Panthers in Week 11. Hard to see that really being scaled back at all now that they're getting back into the swing of things, and they're looking to right the ship in a big game against the Dolphins in South Florida. So McCaffrey going to be very popular on this slate in addition to those 2 value backs above. Have to talk about Jonathan Taylor now. Pretty much matchup proof. We know the Bucs are a really tough rush defense, but after what we just saw him do last week, it's really tough to ignore this guy. How does someone do what he did last week, other than just being uber talented at the position, which is certainly something that Jonathan Taylor is? He's actually reached a season high in offensive snaps played. 83 and 84% of total offensive snaps played for the Colts over the last 2 weeks of play. Connected with the fact that Nyheim Hines played a season low 19% snaps for the Colts, as the secondary running back, as what we perceive as the pass catching running back for the Colts. Hines hasn't been able to get on the field, so it looks like the Colts are really looking to maximize the opportunities for Taylor. They recognize the talent that they have here and that he's probably their best path to victory. So that's why he's seeing his volume of snaps played and touches increase. And obviously it certainly helps when you get a situation like last week where the Bills kept turning the ball over deep in their own end. Jonathan Taylor leads the entire NFL with 60 carries inside the red zone. Just for some perspective there, the player in second place has just 35 red zone carries. So Taylor with 25 more carries in the red zone than any other player in the league this year. That's obviously going to lead to a high probability of touchdown production when you're being used that heavily close to the goal line. That's how somebody scores as many touchdowns as he has scored, not just last week, really all season. So Jonathan Taylor, one of the best running backs in football, 9,100 here on DraftKings, 9,800 over on FanDuel, $100 more than McCaffrey on each site. At home in a high total game, maybe a little lower owned than McCaffrey. So we got to like the opportunity to consider Jonathan Taylor once again here in week 12. Najee Harris with the Pittsburgh Steelers is another option this week. Obviously, his snaps played took a little bit of a hit last week, and so because he had a concussion that knocked him out of the game briefly, so obviously his touch shares in a recent sample of games are going to look a little lower, but they're still elite. 74% of team carries, roughly like 10% of team targets, and we know what the role is here. Their role is, let's feed Najee Harris and justify our first-round draft pick in this player. The Cincinnati Bengals are actually just 18th defending running back routes in the passing game, so a slightly below average matchup in the passing game for Najee. That'll be a good thing. And then the Bengals are actually allowing the second most fantasy points per game to opposing running backs over the last 4 weeks. That's obviously a good thing for someone who's going to touch the ball as much as Najee Harris is in week 12. Definitely think that he's going to be fine this week. Wasn't listed on the injury report for the Steelers at all. 8,200 on DraftKings, 8,800 over on FanDuel. And underdog on the road, so maybe a little less popular than some of these other guys this week, but still in a really good spot to succeed. Another guy on the road, talked about his opposing running back earlier, Darrell Henderson with the Rams. Off a bye week, just $5,800 this week on DraftKings, $7,300 over on FanDuel. Just 5 carries last week in a blowout loss to the San Francisco 49ers, but actually played 75% of the offensive snaps, was much higher than the percent of the snaps he had played the couple weeks before, which was in like the low 60s. So got to like the opportunity for Henderson to bounce back and have a nice game if this game stays a little more competitive. Rams are the 4th best run blocking offensive line in the league. Packers are a below average rush defense. It all sort of starts to look like a very good picture for Darrell Henderson on Sunday against the Packers if this game goes according to plan. We got to like the value here as well. Some other guys that I think will be good to consider. Austin Ekeler, 8,400 on both sites this week. Broncos 28th defending the rush, 22nd defending running backs in the passing game. Saw Ekeler have almost a Jonathan Taylor-esque performance last week in Sunday Night Football. How you do that is when you are involved in the offense as he is, and you have a great matchup like this once again against the Broncos in Week 12. Could be a nice day for Austin Ekeler. Joe Mixon, after missing some time in the middle of the season with an ankle sprain, is back to a really elite role. 74% of team carries last 3 weeks for the Bengals, 10% of the targets, so have to like that here at home against the Pittsburgh Steelers. For somebody who's not really, doesn't feel like being talked about very much this week as a good play, I think he is a good play. 7,500 here on DraftKings, 8,000 over on FanDuel. Now for some fun options, and by fun I mean the opposite of fun. Some of the dumpster dive, bottom of the barrel options people will be considering. Dontrell Hilliard with the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee Titans have basically the entire team out. Have like 17 guys on injured reserve, a bunch of guys on the injury report this week. They're without Jeremy McNichols, who has been their passing down back really all season, even going back to when Henry was available to play. You see what he did last week against Houston. 10 targets in the passing game. He'll definitely be active on Sunday and definitely be in a similar role here alongside Donta Foreman, who will probably be the early down running back who will see some carries. But obviously Hilliard has proven he can see some carries and is far more effective in the passing game. They obviously trust him with the amount of targets that they gave him last week. It was a relatively high share of the targets from Ryan Tannehill. One thing that may go well for the Titans this week, the Patriots are just 26th defending running back routes in the passing game, so Dontrell Hilliard looking like an interesting punt here at the running back position. 4,600 on DraftKings, 5,500 over on FanDuel. And then with the New York Jets, Michael Carter, who had a nice season up to this point, is going to miss a couple of weeks. So Ty Johnson, we think, I got to emphasize that, we think will be the biggest beneficiary. Volume has been really low over the last couple of weeks because Michael Carter has basically taken over the job. But we do think Ty Johnson will be ahead of Tevin Coleman here at the running back position for the Jets in a game against the Texans. And that's a Texans defense that is allowing the 10th most fantasy points per game to running backs over the last few weeks of play. So have to like Ty Johnson here as a result, just 4,300 on DraftKings, 5,200 over on FanDuel. This is a very interesting spot for him. So that's my favorite running backs of the week. Some other guys that we will be considering. Dalvin Cook, 8,100 on both sites this week. High total game. Like the opportunity to potentially stack the Vikings and the 49ers this week. Very strong red zone role. Talked about that. Second in the league to just Jonathan Taylor in terms of carries inside the 20. Saquon Barkley with the Giants. Obviously a tough spot being an underdog against the Eagles, but would like to see his touch volume increase even more over what he saw last week against the Buccaneers. Obviously, a little bit easier matchup than the Buccaneers, so that'd be interesting. Leonard Fournette fits in nicely with a high total Bucs offense. Still the main running back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Pretty important game here against the Colts. He'll be interesting as well. And those are really my favorite guys this week. Did I cover everybody that you wanted to hear about? I hope I did. If I didn't, leave a comment below. We would be happy to talk to you about your favorite running back there in the comment section or in our Discord. Again, link to join a Discord above the description of every video. Keep an eye out for the daily plug that'll be posted on our website, occupyfantasy.com, by about 8 p.m. here on Friday. We'll go over not just our favorite expensive and value running backs, but also quarterbacks, wide receivers, tight ends, all the players that you need to be aware of here in Week 12 on Sunday to use. And we'll give you some tips on how to deploy those players in both low-risk and high-risk contests. That's the most important part of the plug, so you certainly don't want to miss that. As always, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate it when you do those two things. Let's just know that you're enjoying our content. As always, for Occupy, I am Chris. Thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.